Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Debbie Emerson, Hope's community health educator and the facilitator of the Family Caregiver Education Series. And not only have I been a health educator for many years, but I've also been a family caregiver. So I always do presentations from two perspectives, both professional and personal. Over the past 14 years, I've provided care for my mom, her twin sister, as well as my mother and father-in-law, and all four of them have had dementia. So I feel like I've got that personal connection to dementia. And my co-presenter for today is Gia.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So I am Hope Hospice's Manager of Dementia Services and Community Education. I am a TIPA Snow certified dementia consultant and trainer. And I started off with Hope Hospice about 9 years ago as a volunteer, and then sort of got interested in working with persons living with dementia. I look forward to talking with you today about managing daily care, and my hope is that you'll learn some things that'll be helpful to you in your own dementia caregiver journey. You aren't alone, and hopefully today's webinar reassures you of that and offers you some support. So let's get going. We will be talking about TIPA Snow's GEMS state model, which in my opinion is more helpful than the other dementia stages models that we use. For example, early, middle, and late. We'll be talking about TIPA Snow's positive approach to care. The positive approach to care encourages care partners to respond to a person's change in abilities and cognition in a way that is not hurtful or offensive. Being aware of the environments surrounding a person living with dementia and making changes as needed. We can change, but the person living with dementia can't. Now, twice you've heard me mention TIPA Snow, and if you don't know who she is, we consider her to be our dementia guru. She is internationally recognized as one of the leading educators on dementia and the caring for persons living with dementia. A lot of Debbie's and my information and tips come from TIPA and her practices. We'll be talking about planning for daily care and what that can look like in a practical sense. How you can work with resistance to care, frustration, boredom, etc. Hopefully, we'll give you some insight that will help you come up with your own care plan that works best for you and your caregiving family. And we've left some time at the end for your questions. So as we go, please jot anything down that you might want to address, and we'll do our best to talk about that at the end.
One of the challenges of dementia care education is that each of your journeys is unique, and the timeline for the progression of dementia varies so much from individual to individual. And if today's audience is like most who have attended previous classes, we most likely have care recipients in varying stages of dementia, from very early mild cognitive impairment to possibly very late or end stages. Or maybe some of you are here just to get a better sense of how to handle a future dementia diagnosis. So even though the underlying condition, such as Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, so even though the underlying condition that's causing that dementia can influence the symptoms and progression, all dementias have something in common. And so we can make some generalizations about dementia care that's going to be will be guiding our presentation for today. So regardless of the person's current situation, the dementia will progress, and in most cases, to the point where the person needs round-the-clock care. What can be confusing and challenging is that the person with dementia will have moments, maybe even hours, where they're lucid. They may seem to be their former selves. They'll have good days and not so good days. But the sad reality is that dementia is a condition that's chronic, and it will get progressively more disabling. As more and more abilities are lost, the caregiver's role will evolve and responsibilities will increase, in some cases quite dramatically. With increased responsibilities, it's only natural that the caregiver's stress level increases. The person with dementia may also experience an increase in stress and frustration as more and more of their abilities are lost. So we need to be aware of this, and we need to make sure that we do everything possible to focus on providing support and creating a meaningful life for both the care partner and the person living with dementia. Now, as we say all of the time in our classes, challenging behavior is a result of unmet needs. Our job as care partners is to anticipate those needs and to try to meet them before they can lead to distress or caregiver burnout. The time will come where one person cannot provide all of the care all of the time. It's essential that you ask for help from relatives, from friends, professional in-home care providers, and maybe even consider facility placement should your loved one's needs become more than you can handle. It's so important for their well-being that they view you first as their spouse or their son or their daughter or their grandchild friend, rather than just someone who takes care of their physical needs. As you learn more about effective strategies for managing dementia care, one of your most important responsibilities is to share with others what you learn and help them to develop their skills as care partners, because they're going to be your backup. It will be good for you, but just as importantly, it's going to be good for the person living with dementia to learn to accept help from others. So today's webinar is all about strategies for organizing the day and planning activities that will not only improve the person's sense of well-being, but it's going to hopefully make your life a little bit easier. And we'd like to focus on the fact that those living with dementia are doing just that. They are living with dementia, and we need to make the most of it because they can have a good quality of life. Now, we cannot address every unique situation in today's 90-minute presentation, but we can provide resources. And most of today's webinar is going to focus on strategies actually that work well in the beginning and middle stages of dementia. And by the way, the middle stage does tend to be the longest, and for caregivers, the most challenging. If you need specifics on very advanced and end-stage dementia, refer to the Alzheimer's website as well as the Caregiving Handbook from the National Institute on Aging. And I have both of these included on the resource list, and both of them really are excellent.
The stages of dementia give us a general idea of where someone is in the disease process, and most models focus on what the person living with dementia can't do anymore. One reason this is flawed is because by focusing on what the person living with dementia can't do, we're missing out on opportunities to focus on what they can do. Here is where Teepa Snow's GEMS state model comes in. The thought process behind the GEMS model is that Teepa wanted to come up with a simple way for us to focus on what abilities remain and to help care partners to figure out ways to best support and encourage these abilities. Part of the definition of a gem is of something precious and prized for its uniqueness and great beauty. By assigning each of these stages or abilities to a precious gem, we've created an image of appreciation for the retained abilities of the person living with dementia. Now, there are 6 GEMS levels, and it's important to note that just because a person is displaying signs of one GEM state currently, doesn't mean that they're necessarily stuck there. The GEMS states can and do fluctuate often, usually multiple times throughout the day. We've got a video to watch where Teepa explains a little bit more in depth. And by the way, one of the handouts that you can download from our website summarizes all of the information in this video that you're going to see.
Okay, and just also, we have a link to this actual video. It's on YouTube that you can take a look at if you want to check it out later or share it with somebody else.
To talk about progression. How does this disease change over time? Now, unfortunately, typically what people talk about is loss. Oh, it's worse, it's worse, it's worse. And it's going to get harder and things are going to get worse. But if that's all you're thinking about, you're missing opportunities. It's not just about the loss. It's always about what do they have left. And so I took the scales that were out there and looked at them. And frankly, they're pretty depressing. They emphasize too much. Uh-oh, what's going to happen next? And it's not a good thing. So what I decided is, let's stop talking about people as though they were less. And let's start looking at people as though they still have something. My job as a care partner is to figure out how to provide the right support and the right care so they can shine. Quit thinking about them as numbers. Is this a stage 1, 2, or 3, or a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? And instead, how about if we looked at, how are they precious? How are they unique? What do they have that I can still use to help them live life? Because life happens and we're both going to live it. So how's it going to be? So I thought, how about gems? How about if we thought about people as precious and unique? There's not a single gem that I know of that people don't find attractive and interesting. And if I could get you to think about people as having something positive, something good, and I got you to see them that way and understand them that way, then you may be more interested in providing the right setting and the right care so they can shine. And so what I did is I took a scale that's out there, Allen cognitive levels, cognitive disabilities. It's something used in occupational therapy. And I took that and I built off of that. And what we have are gems, 6 of them, 6 levels: sapphires and diamonds and emeralds and ambers and rubies and pearls. All of those are amazing gems, but they're all different. They're all unique. They all have characteristics. Now, the way I organize this is sapphire. Notice how it's on the other hand. It's a little special. It's a brain that's true blue. It's a brain that's not experiencing the changes that come with things like dementia. Instead, this is a brain that's flexible, it's organized, it's able to work with all these other gems. And when you're a care provider, it's really important to be a partner who is flexible and not really struggling on your own. But the reality is you're probably going to experience some moments that aren't sapphire-like. When that happens, take a break, because you do want to be a sapphire to care for the gems. Now, let's talk about the gems: diamonds, emeralds, ambers, rubies, and pearls. Diamonds, clear, sharp, but rigid, have lots of facets to them, but inflexible, not liking change, but absolutely able to shine. But diamonds can also cut you. They can hurt you because they still are who they were, but they're different. They're clear and they're sharp. So you may not even believe or think that this is real, that they have a dementia, because they know what they're doing, that she's just being stubborn. Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes things like zirconians can trick you. They look like the real deal and they're not. But if you see somebody who's acting like a diamond, if you experience diamond behavior, create the right setting and the right care, things get better. If you don't recognize it, you can get cut. So when someone is in a diamond state, what we're talking about is rigid, inflexible. I'm very good with habit and routine, the things I've always done. I'm not so good with new stuff. I don't like change, and I don't like people telling me what to do if they never told me what to do. If you were always an authority figure, we're probably in good shape. I may follow you around more and shadow you, but I won't argue with you. But if you've never been the boss of me, this is going to get to be a real problem. Emeralds, things are changing. And unlike the diamond, it's not clear and sharp anymore. There's a color, you've noticed. This is usually about the time most people get identified as having something going on. This is emerald green, go. In a stoplight sequence, the green light is go. These people are going, but they aren't always sure where. Their words are not always clear and sharp like they used to be. Their direction and the time frame, it's not always where they think they are and where you thought they were. Emeralds are always flawed, but the emerald doesn't know that. They think they're fine. Everything's fine. So if they have a problem, you're it. Or if there is a flaw, well, it doesn't matter. So this is where we start to notice changes in my ability to do things. I'm making mistakes. I'm skipping steps. I'm getting lost in a day. I get lost in my life. I think you're a different person than you are. I think I'm in a different place than I'm in. I start a task and then I go do another task having not finished that. I get turned around pretty easily. I have a flaw. But if you match up and you don't point out my flaw, it goes a lot better. So with emeralds, things are changing for both of you. And I'm no longer clear and sharp. I am struggling. And I may not know that. Guess who will be struggling? You, if you're not careful, because you want what we had before and you aren't going to be able to have that. Now let's talk about the next gem. Ooh, oh, uh-oh, ambers. Yeah, most of you don't really like ambers in real life with dementia, but let me describe amber. Amber is one of the most interesting gems because it actually isn't a found in the ground gem. It's something like sap coming out of a tree and something getting stuck in it and then more sap and then it hardens up a little bit. It's something caught in a moment of time. And that's where these folks are. They're in a moment of time. It's all about sensation. It's all about what does it feel like? What does it look like? What can I do with it? Do I like it? Don't I like it? I'm in a moment. I don't have caution. I don't have safety awareness. I'm all about if I want it now. And if I don't like it, I'm not doing it. And so this is often where, as a care provider, you really struggle because my behavior is so inconsistent with who I used to be. But an amber is an amber. They aren't a diamond or an emerald, and they certainly aren't a sapphire. So this is the point in the disease where you might see me engaging in ways, because I'm still very interested and curious, but I don't know whether it's safe or not. So I may pick up things and do things with them, and it's not okay. I invade your space. I take things. I mess with stuff. And I may have a low sensory need or a high sensory need for any of the 5 senses, but I don't have safety awareness, and I wear you out because I'm not always good at when and when not to sleep. It's sort of like if I feel like it, I do. Not all the time, but it's important to notice in the moment. Critical to be a sapphire. You struggle to not be a diamond at this point. Oh yes, we can become diamonds. Don't think it's all about dementia. It's about brain change. And in a moment, you can have a diamond moment, you little sapphires. In other words, you get frustrated with what's going on and you have a hard time, particularly with ambers. The next gem, ruby. Now, ruby's changing yet again. We're no longer a caution light. We're at the stoplight. And what stops is all fine motor skill. But what do I keep? Big movement and strength. I've got some strength, but I don't have skill. So what you're going to notice in those times, I've lost fine motor in my eyes, in my fingers, in my mouth, and in my feet. So I have trouble figuring things out visually. I have trouble chewing and swallowing sometimes, but for sure, getting speech out. But I still have rhythm and I still have music. That's the gift. That's something I can still do because it feels like to you it should be skill, but it's actually sort of automatic. So with rubies, although I lost the fine skill, I still have the big. So my hands now are more gross. I don't manipulate, I hold. And because I keep strength, unfortunately, I can grab onto something. And if that something is you, I could hurt you. I don't mean to. I like pressure. I like to hold on to stuff. I don't always know how to let go. Sometimes you're having that problem too, because you're, again, slipping from here to here because you're going from a sapphire to a diamond. If you find those moments, and you will with rubies, because it's so scary. I can't settle down. I can't get started. It's a struggle. You need to take that step back and time yourself out. Take a deep breath, get oxygen to your brain, let go of what was so you can be that sapphire. Oh, and that's critically important when we get to this last gem, the pearl. Now, I selected the pearl for this state because at that moment, think of the outside of an oyster shell. And as you look at that oyster shell, I've got to tell you, that is one of the ugliest things you'll ever see in this world. And you never think that on the outside of an oyster shell, you're going to find this amazing thing. And at the end of this disease, what this disease does to the human body, it's pretty ugly. It turns on reflexes. It shuts down systems. It's making it very difficult. I lose my gross motor. And what I'm ruled by, reflexes. I'm actually stuck. I'm trapped. But with the right care, the shell relaxes just a little. And in there you find this amazing gem, a pearl, built layer upon layer on a single grain of sand. This amazing gem, still in there, but often trapped. And sometimes, if you're not careful, you spend way too much energy worrying about the shell, and you miss the most important thing. That's not the gem. With the right care, you get to see the real gem. This amazing person, not who they used to be, but I'm still in there. I'm me, but I'm different. I'm not a ruby or an amber or an emerald or a diamond. I'm not the sapphire I may have once been, but I'm still there and I'm still me, but I'm different. The question for all of us is, can we see the precious and unique? Can we experience the person as this amazing gem of great value and give them the right setting and the right care so they can shine?
So well, as I mentioned before, you've got the link to the video that Teepa Snow just showed us. And in your resources, you've got a handout that has more information and more details about the gem states. For example, Teepa in the resources includes tips for responding to some behaviors that you might see and talks about ways to adjust the environment so that you can support in each particular gem state. Thanks, Debbie.
All right, thank you, Chia. Okay, person-centered care responses. Now, we talk a lot about person-centered care in all of our dementia classes, and it's especially important for this one. And as we just saw, it's the basis for all of Teepa Snow's teachings. So in person-centered care, we treat the person with dignity and respect, and we try to look at situations from their point of view. We try to develop care plans that reflect their likes, their dislikes, their interests, their basic needs. And you'll see more of what I mean as we continue today's presentation. So let's just take a look at some person-centered care responses and strategies. So pain is one of the most common triggers for dementia-related behaviors. We always want to check for pain and ensure that basic needs are being met. Those for whom you provide care may not be able to find the right words to tell you what they're feeling or what they need. So you'll need to learn to recognize the clues and the behaviors that indicate that they're hungry or they're thirsty, or if they need to use the restroom, or if they're tired or lonely or bored, or maybe just need a hug. Since language ability has most likely declined, be sure to limit any explanations that you give. So keep instructions simple, limit choices, and be sure that you rely on nonverbal cues such as gestures, facial expressions, tone of voice. And Gia is going to talk more about this later. And as we've said in all of our dementia classes, and we will continue to emphasize today, try to respond to their emotions, to their feelings, rather than to their words. For example, they may tell you that they want to go home, even though they are home. For the person with dementia, home refers more to a feeling of safety, comfort, security, rather than an actual physical place. So if they say they want to go home, what they really might mean is they need to be comforted and reassured. Their reality may not be the same as ours. So rather than trying to convince them that they are home or that you are their wife or their son or their daughter, join in their reality. Their ability to understand reason and logic is most likely diminished. So calmly validate their emotions and then try to redirect or distract. And as difficult as it may be, don't force your own agenda. And this is hard because as care partners, there are never enough hours in the day. But remember, we want to always focus on the person, not on the task. And hopefully we'll be able to give you some strategies today that might help with this.
Using Teepa Snow's positive physical approach with persons who are living with dementia allows them to connect with us at their own speed and to not feel frightened. The first step in understanding this process is to recognize that we are entering into their space. We always need to get permission to enter a room or to enter their personal space. Imagine what it would be like if you were sitting on your couch watching TV and all of a sudden someone that you didn't expect to be there and someone who looked like a stranger to you appeared right in front of you. How would you feel and how would you respond? Remembering that language skills may be diminished, we need to do this without relying solely on our words. So that might look like knocking on the door or the wall to get their attention. And once they've made eye contact with you, announce yourself and approach from the front where they can see you. Slowly, and when I say slowly, I mean really slowly, like maybe about 1 step per second. Come closer. And don't use too many words. This might look like, "Hi, Mary. I'm Gia." Or you might even say, "I'm your granddaughter, Gia." This may relieve them of trying to figure out where they know you from. And remember, introduce yourself every time, no matter if it was just yesterday that you saw her previously. Now, once you're in their line of sight, make sure that you're not above them, but you're at eye level. And get close, but no closer than about 6 feet apart. And by the way, 6 feet apart tends to be about 2 full extended arms lengths. Once you've made eye contact, put your right hand up to the right hand side of your face. It may feel silly, but what this does is it draws their eyes to your face. And hopefully your face is friendly and smiling. Smile and slowly offer your hand in greeting. Offer, don't force. And again, slow is the key word here. Allow them ample time to try and understand your greeting. Keep your palm up, offered, until hopefully they place their hand in yours. Now you've made a connection. Try not to break that connection and try not to break the eye connection that you've established either. Now you can continue to slowly come forward to sit next to them or to kneel down closer. And remember that people living with dementia have reduced peripheral vision. So if you aren't in their field of sight, you might startle them, prompting that fright, flight, fright response. So keep in mind these person-centered care techniques as Debbie and I discuss some of the more common dementia-related behaviors in greater detail. As Debbie mentioned earlier, there's a lot more information that she's put on our website about behaviors and strategies in that resource list. A positive action starter is a way for you to make a connection starting hitting the ground running, so to speak. So that looks like asking yes or no questions or requiring a specific answer increases the refusal or a miscommunication. So instead of saying, "Do you want to go to lunch?" or "Are you ready for your shower?" maybe try instead to say, "It's time for lunch. Let's go here." Or you could say, "Oh, would you like to shower or brush your teeth first?" Or even, "Would you like a strawberry milkshake or chocolate?" Again, keeping your language with few words, go slow, and start off giving options that you can live with. Another positive action starter might be to say something like, I could really use your help, or I have a favor to ask of you. You could also say, let's try. If you get a negative response, someone saying that they don't want to do something, you could try acknowledging it and saying, I know you don't want to do it. Let's at least give it a try. Keep things short and simple. It's time for whatever. Or this way, pointing the direction that you two are going to move forward. And take a step-by-step approach. So that means simplifying the task to one step at a time. It's often challenging for a person living with dementia to follow multiple steps. So keep it simple.
Thus far, we've been talking about, we've been trying to help you understand how dementia has impacted your loved one's life and how it's changed their behaviors. And we shared with you some person-centered care strategies to help you better manage those behaviors. So for the rest of today's presentation, it's going to be all about planning daily care by employing activities that not only meet the person's needs, but also focus on what skills and abilities are remaining. And all the time, all the while ensuring that we treat the person with the respect and the dignity that they deserve. So when thinking about how to plan the day, keep in mind the purpose of activities. We always want to encourage self-expression, remembering that even though our loved ones are not the same as they used to be, there is still a person in there who needs to feel valued and appreciated. In so doing, we can keep them engaged in life, which is the best way to combat the devastating effects of isolation and depression. So no matter what the activity is, even something as mundane as brushing your teeth, we want to find every opportunity to create an emotional connection with the person. Remember, the person living with dementia may forget who you are, but they will always remember the emotions that are at the heart of your relationship. We've learned that memory is one of the first cognitive abilities to be impacted by dementia. So as we move throughout the activities of the day, we need to find little ways to stir and trigger memories. So just a quick example. Once I gave my aunt a new blouse. And when I brought it in, she looked at it and she goes, "Oh, you didn't have to do that." And then I said to her, "You know, Auntie, when I was a little girl, you always bought clothes for me. Now I get to buy them for you." And that statement prompted her to start talking about how much she loved caring for me when I was a baby. She still had a lot of memories surrounding that. And so we were able to have a really nice conversation. Anxiety goes hand in hand with dementia. When the familiar becomes the unfamiliar, it's natural to feel fearful, apprehensive, on edge. Not knowing what to expect can be debilitating. Actually, that's really true for all of us, not just somebody living with dementia. So our plans need to include routine and familiarity. This is especially true as the day goes on and the person may begin to experience that anxiety, agitation, and increased confusion. Now, this is what is known as sundowning. And we can help to minimize the effects of sundowning by making sure that there is a lot of consistency and structure and rest, calmness in their environment so they can have a better sense of what to expect. And we need to find just the right activity. The just right challenge refers to our choosing an appropriate activity for our loved one that's interesting and engaging, yet does not cause frustration or distress for the individual. And this takes advanced thought and planning. So I'll give you an example of the just right challenge. I was trying to find activities that my aunt could do in her room in the skilled nursing facility that would be fun and would engage her creative side. So I purchased some of those adult coloring books and I thought she might enjoy those. But she was kind of insulted when I showed up with coloring books and crayons. She says to me, "You know, I am not a child." So I had to do some quick thinking and spin this activity into something that would respect her dignity. So I said, "Oh, I know you're not a child, but I was just thinking that you may want to do some art that Ray and Leo, her great grandchildren, could hang up in their rooms to remind them of Grammy." Now she had a purpose that made sense to her. She wouldn't have understood if I'd tried to explain to her that, these days a lot of adults are coloring as a creative outlet or for stress reduction. But making gifts for her great grandchildren, now that made sense to her. By the way, I did need to get large crayons rather than colored pencils because her arthritis was so bad that it was hard for her to hold a pencil. Finding the right activity is often an exercise in trial and error. As we plan activities for one with dementia, we need to keep in mind the importance of not only filling their day, but how to make it meaningful for them and for us, their care partners. So we need to think about what goes into a meaningful life. So as I'm describing each of these categories, try to keep your care recipient in mind and think about what activities would work for them and for you. So there's 4 broad categories of activities that contribute to a meaningful life. And the easy way to remember these is that they all start with the letter P. So the first category, productive, includes activities that have a purpose. They make the person feel valued and appreciated. They're tasks that make one feel as if they're making a contribution, that they make a difference. This category is critical for a person's sense of well-being, the sense that what I do matters. Remember the example I gave of my aunt and the coloring books? Now, as soon as she felt that by coloring, she would be doing something to make her great-grandchildren happy, in other words, a gift from Grammy, she was receptive to the idea. Now, as a care partner, instead of barking instructions, do this, do that, which is kind of easy to do, but we need to soften the message. So instead say, "Can you help me with this? Oh, can you do me a favor? I need for you to do whatever." And this shows them that they are still capable and relevant and valued. By the way, we all need to feel this, not just somebody who has dementia. Now, the next category of activities involves personal or self-care, how we care for our bodies, like bathing, showering, brushing teeth, exercising. It includes caring for our brains by doing things that are fun and interesting and that stimulate our thinking. It also includes taking care of where we live, our environment, keeping the home tidy, keeping things organized, emptying the garbage, making our beds. It could also include grocery shopping and whatever tasks the person is still able to do independently. As a care partner, help the person for whom you're providing care to do as much as they're able by making sure that you provide plenty of support, prompts, cues, and managing their environment so that they can succeed. And Gia's going to talk a little bit later about the environment. So the more someone can contribute to their own care, the more independent they will feel. This category also promotes wellness. And as you probably can see, it can go hand in hand with the productive category. Now, the next type of activity is called pleasure. These are leisure activities, things you do because they're fun or because they give you joy. They make you feel good. These are the things that you do because you like them, not because there's any financial gain. Now, pleasurable activities can either be something that you do passively, such as watching something or someone else doing something, like going to a concert or watching someone play a game, or they could be active. You are playing the instrument or playing cards with someone. Now, there's a place for both passive and active leisure activities in everybody's life. And the activities don't have to last a long time because a little bit goes a long way. And most likely their attention span is much shorter than it was pre-dementia. And also remember that those pleasurable emotions linger even without cognitive awareness. Now, this last category is one that we don't really think of as an activity. This is rest and restoration. Now, we're calling it power up, so we can stick with the P theme. This is all about how we recharge our batteries. And of course, sleep falls into this category. But there are other ways to recharge. And how you do this depends on your personality and your temperament. Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Now, some people need quiet, alone time to recharge. Others get their energy by being around people. This category also includes spiritual restoration, things you do to bring your spirit back up. And this could be prayer, meditation, listening to calming music, or simply just sitting quietly and doing nothing. Care partners really need this category too. When our care recipients are resting and recharging, we can use this time to take a break and recharge our batteries. So we need to plan a balanced day for the person with dementia. And they need activities in all 4 of these categories so they can be the best that they can be. And actually, so do we, their care partners. We're going to need all the mental and physical strength and energy that we can muster to support them as best as we can. So let's look at some considerations. Because when planning for daily care activities, not only do we need to keep in mind the 4 categories that I just mentioned, but we also need to consider the person's capabilities. This refers to what they are able to do, both mentally and physically. So rather than looking at what's been lost, focus on what they can do. And remember that their abilities may change daily or hourly. So something that may have worked yesterday may not work today. With regard to their level of independence, be realistic. We always want to allow them to do as much as they can realistically do. So you'll need to decide what things they can do alone or what things they're going to need help with. And it may be as simple as a prompt to help them get started, like, "Here, Dad, I set out your toothbrush for you." Now, I've said this a lot today. We need to preserve their dignity and respect. If you do everything for them, one of 2 things will most likely happen. They may rebel and become uncooperative, maybe even belligerent, or possibly they'll become totally dependent on others and you to do everything for them. Because doing too much for them is actually debilitating and counterproductive. We want to look at how the person used to structure their day pre-dementia. Did they enjoy spontaneous activities, or did spur-of-the-moment activities create anxiety? We also need to look at if there are times when there is too much going on, or possibly too little to do. Don't be concerned about filling every minute with an activity, because we all need a balance of activity and rest. So it's important to plan a regular bedtime and waking time to promote an optimal sleep pattern. We all need this, by the way, so more about that later. One's attention span is also impacted by dementia. This includes the person's ability to attend to a task, complete a task, or stay focused. You need to keep this in mind as you plan. Lengthy activities that require a certain degree of focus, such as watching a movie or completing a complicated craft project, may not work well. Even long visits with others can be too much. So you'll need to break up the task or the activity into manageable chunks. It's better to start slowly and then gradually increase the time if you think the person can handle it. Now, their likes, their dislikes, their interests may remain the same. They may need to be adapted, or they may need to totally change. Maybe they can no longer go to the golf course, but consider miniature golf, a backyard or an indoor putting green, watching golf on TV or YouTube, or flipping through a golf magazine. If they previously enjoyed pets, but are now unable to have a pet for whatever reason, ask friends or neighbors to stop by with their animals. Or consider a robotic pet. Gia will talk more about that later. In planning activities, we want to make sure that they feel successful and that they have fun. We want to foster social interactions to stave off isolation and boredom, but be cognizant of what their inclinations were prior to dementia. So were they highly social and outgoing, or were they introverted, preferring one-on-one or small group interactions? Did they have a lot of friends or a few close friends? Were they family-oriented? Crowds can be overwhelming for a person with dementia, especially once the language skills begin to decline. The person can easily get overwhelmed and overstimulated. They can get confused and anxious. So it's always good to have an exit strategy planned, or at least have a quiet place where the person with dementia can be taken so that they can recharge. As care partners, we always want to be on the lookout for activities that can be frustrating or overwhelming, because this can lead to dementia-related behaviors such as resistance, agitation, aggression, anxiety. It's important to know what the person's triggers are and what you can do to anticipate and avoid those triggers. And last but not least, what are your capabilities as a care partner? When planning, you always have to consider what you are able to do and what you are willing to do. So take it easy on yourself and always put your own needs first. And it's not selfish, because you can't care for another unless you first care for yourself. And now Gia is going to talk about another important consideration, how we as caregivers can adjust the environment to ensure success.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So, adjusting the environment allows care partners to easily exert some control. And it's important to always consider safety first. Ensure lighting is adequate. Use child-proof locks, deadbolts, cover outlets, all of those things that are a little one step more difficult to get into something. Remove tripping and fall hazards. I'm so sorry. Keep halls and pathways clear. Look around through the eyes of someone else and look at what might be something that could be a tripping hazard. Buy well-fitting shoes or slippers. Those shoes or slippers with gription on the bottom of them are usually really helpful, and they can be really comfortable too. Lock up or remove medications, alcohol, weapons, and hazardous products like household cleaning products. And it's really important to make sure that rooms are well lit. The aging process, as well as dementia, can have an impact on vision. Night lights or motion-sensitive lights in hallways can be helpful. It's also good to adjust lighting to minimize shadows and glares that can not only lead to tripping hazards, but can also be misperceived as something else. A lot of times we find that shadows or images on the wall caused by inadequate lighting can be triggers to hallucinations. Deadbolts, locks placed up high, can minimize unsafe wandering. Like I mentioned before, child-proof locks on cupboards can also help to prevent injuries. Throw rugs and clutter in general are fall hazards. Toys, excess furniture, ill-fitting shoes or ill-fitting slippers, Again, those griptions on the bottom, you need good traction. And slippers that don't have backs can be nice for getting your feet in and easy, but they can also easily get kicked off and cause someone to fall. Remember about safety knobs and shutoff switches on stoves. And remember, not everything is clear cut insofar as being a hazard. So try to look at the room and the environment through their eyes. Organize and simplify. And when it comes to activities, have favorite activities readily accessible. Puzzles, cards, photos, snacks. If you have to go into the garage to dig out a puzzle and find exactly the right one that you're looking for, by the time you get back, having found exactly it, you may have lost your opportunity for a good connection. And something else that might help with repeated questions and reminders might be to use whiteboards or large calendars. If someone is interested in knowing what's going on throughout the day, if you've got written on a whiteboard the schedule of daily activities, you might get fewer questions. Arrange closets, drawers, the pantry, and the bathroom so that it's user-friendly. Items easy to find. Limit options and choices. And again, I've said it a lot of times now, minimize clutter. And then lastly, reduce stimulation. So when you're adjusting the lighting to minimize those shadows and those glares, think too about how some lighting may encourage feelings of being overwhelmed because it's added stimulation. Eliminate unnecessary noise that may cause confusion or distress. Sometimes a TV or a radio in the background can be soothing for someone, but it could also sometimes be overwhelming when someone's trying to concentrate on a TV show or a task that's in front of them. That can lead to agitation and aggression. It may even be important for you to consider limiting visits or maybe even just controlling the time when someone visits. All of these things are just tips and suggestions on ways for you to think about the environment through a different set of eyes.
Okay,
So
great.
now we're going to talk a
Oh,
little.
hey,
Yeah,
Gia, can I interject for just a second here?
of
Because
course.
when you were talking about slippers and shoes, and making sure you don't have, a shoe that's ill-fitting or something that can slip off real easily, I've recently discovered these sneakers that are slip-on. The back kind of folds down as you put your foot in, and then it pops right back up again. And then it fits just like a sneaker. They look cute. I'm wearing them these days. And I actually get compliments from young people on how cute they are. So if anybody's interested in those, shoot me an email and I can tell you a little bit more information about those. But I am using those sneakers. Personally, I have a pair that I just keep in the house, and those are my slippers because they are that comfortable. And I feel much more secure, walking around and less fearful that I might trip and fall. So again, just wanted to throw that in there. So sorry for interrupting, and
No, that's a great interjection. I'm so glad you shared. And you can't see me, but I'm raising my hand. Will you please send me the information about them? I haven't heard of those before.
Okay, good.
All right. So let's talk about what are we talking? Oh, tips. Okay, so tips for playing activities. I'm so sorry, I got all excited about the shoes. So it's important to organize the day for the person living with dementia. They need rhythm for each day, each week, each year. It's also important for you, the care partners. If you've got a plan for the day, you'll be better able to tell where you may need help. For example, if you know that your person living with dementia usually wakes up around 7 a.m., and some of the first things that they like to do is to shower, dress, and eat, you may know that you're going to need some extra help during this time from another care partner. And It's helpful to teach others the skills that they may need to help you ahead of time and schedule them ahead of time so that you can plan and count on the help. By organizing the day as best as you can reduce the times during the day that the person living with dementia is just waiting, idle. Think about how much time in their life is spent sitting around waiting. They're waiting for someone to cook a meal. They're waiting for someone to chat with them. Waiting, waiting, waiting. That's hard. Try thinking about it like this. What's needed daily? Make a list. Maybe that looks like meal prep, grooming, some sort of movement or physical activity. And what's distinctive about some of the days? For example, are Wednesdays the days that the family comes to visit? Or is it Tuesday morning that you know you need to go to the grocery store? What time of day tends to be challenging for the person living with dementia, and what time of day tends to be easier? And just by the way, most of the time, the mornings tend to be a little bit easier. And like Debbie mentioned before, the afternoons or early evenings can be a little bit more challenging with sundowning happening. In general, if the person seems bored, distracted, or irritable, it might be time to introduce another activity or take a time out for a rest. The type of activity and how well it's completed are not nearly as important as the joy and the sense of accomplishment that the person gets from doing it. Asking for help. So, making a list of ways that others might be able to help you ahead of time is key. So that when someone comes to you and says, "What can I do? I really want to help," you've got a list readily available. You can just give them a task and say, "Thank you for offering." I believe, Debbie, I'm going to pull you in here for a second. You've got a really good example of a neighbor caring for her husband who's on chemo and really ill. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just kind of a way to engage somebody, offer some help, some support for a caregiver. So my neighbor's husband, and sadly he passed away recently, but she had been devoting every aspect of her life, to caring for him. And she was finding she couldn't do everything that she could do, that she used to do in her regular life. And so she used to love to work in her garden. And so one day I saw her out there just madly trying to get stuff together. And so I went out there and just said, let's, maybe I can help you. Let's do this together because it's something I actually enjoy doing. And so, that simple little thing just gave her, the caregiver, a short break and gave her some social interaction. And then, we kind of made it, a point to let's try to do this on a regular basis. It's a great way for, for me to talk with my neighbor and to give her that just little respite. So that was just kind of the only thing I was gonna talk about. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I do love that example because it's good for everybody.
yeah, it's a
So we
win-win-win.
it really is. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you for letting me pull you in like that. So we are going to talk about a sample daily care plan. So Debbie's got a great slide up on this screen. And when you look at each of these categories, remember what your goals are. You need to cover some hygiene and basic needs, but daily care goes so much further beyond that. So figure out what daily care looks like for you and your care partner. Before creating your own individualized care plan, remember the considerations that Debbie discussed earlier. What are their capabilities? What can they do successfully? So think about independence and be realistic in setting your expectations for what they can do and give them the appropriate opportunity to do it. Social skills. What social preferences did this person have before dementia set in? Were they introverted or extroverted? And usually these characteristics remain. So trying to get an introvert to engage in a group activity might not be the best idea. What are and were their likes, dislikes, and interests? Think about what's worked in the past. Stay away from what hasn't worked. Flexibility. Remember those 4 Ps of meaningful activities? We want to include activities that make a person feel valued, productive, and appreciated. They need to feel a sense of purpose. They should feel moments of pleasure throughout their day. What activities do they find enjoyable, either alone or with others? This can include socializing, singing, dancing, walking, gardening, reading, crafting, games, etc. And oftentimes when I'm talking with care partners about these positive interactions, when I say, well, think about what they used to like, gardening. Oh, yeah, but they can't garden anymore, is a common answer that I get. Well, okay, they can't garden the way they used to anymore, but what might they still be able to do? Maybe just running their hands through the dirt and feeling the warm earth and the sun outside, all of that can bring them back to what it used to feel like when they were able to garden the way they wanted to. You should also think about scheduling times during the day to promote well-being. And what I mean by this is time to just relax and rejuvenate. Like Debbie mentioned earlier, this could look like napping, praying, listening to music, quiet time with someone else, or even petting animals. And again, as Debbie mentioned, all of these tips aren't just for the person living with dementia. These are important tips for you care partners too. We all have these needs that must be filled in order for us to remain healthy and whole. And remember that as the symptoms of dementia change with time, it's important to be flexible in planning a daily care plan. Evaluate the outcome of the plan often. The outcome of the plan will change as the dementia symptoms change. With some creativity, flexibility, and patience, a daily care plan will enhance the caregiving experience while providing the much needed stability and structure for you and your loved one.
Okay, thank you, Gia.
Mm.
Just a quick note. I don't know if as you're looking at this slide that's up here, how simple it is. I mean, this is not like writing a lesson plan as a teacher where you have to have every detail included. This is just really general, and it's really simple. The other thing that you might just keep in mind is your daily care plan for the weekdays might be different than your care plans for the weekends. So just anyway, it's super simple to do, and we've got some resources online. And there's a really great one from the Alzheimer's Association that really can help you more with planning for your day. Okay. So this slide is titled "When It Doesn't Work." I think I mentioned earlier that a lot of caregiving is trial and error. And we try things, and then we, the care partners, at least this was true for me, make a lot of errors. So when something doesn't work, you want to identify the distress and try an apology. Because again, no matter how carefully we plan or anticipate needs, we're going to make mistakes, and probably a lot of them. And as we mentioned earlier, what worked yesterday may not work today. And those for whom we provide care are bound to get upset and frustrated, and so are we. So the first thing that we can do to try to resolve an issue is to assume responsibility for anything that went wrong. Don't argue. Don't try to reason. Don't try to explain. Because remember, it's highly unlikely that they've lost their ability to understand logic. And they always think that they are right and we are wrong. Because from their perspective, that's how it is. So Teepa Snow has identified 5 ways to say, I'm sorry. So by learning and practicing these simple I'm sorry phrases, we'll be able to acknowledge the person, we'll be able to accept responsibility, hopefully diffuse the situation, and then create an opportunity to heal and strengthen our relationship. So I have the 5 categories listed up here on the slide, and Teepa's going to go into greater detail about all of these and give you some good examples.
So when we talk about positive care techniques and these positive approach to care, hand under hand, physical approach, why is it so important? Because it makes a big difference. We are the piece that fills in the puzzle. We can't do it without them, but they can't do it without us. It's a combo. And by learning the skills that they're missing, suddenly things change dramatically. The person who has dementia has life because we know how to provide what they're missing, because it's not all gone. Something's there. We've got to use what they still have. And that's what these techniques, these skills allow us as care partners to do. And that's what we're talking about. Doing it differently so they can be successful and we can be included. I'm sorry I was trying to help. I'm sorry I made you angry. Or I'm sorry I frustrated you. That's your second I'm sorry. There's 5 of them, just so you know. That was your first one is I'm sorry I was trying to help. The second one is I'm sorry I made you angry. The third one, this is an important one. I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. I had no right to treat you like a child. You are not stupid. I am so sorry. I had no right to make you feel that way. The third, I'm sorry. What was your first one? I'm sorry, I was trying to help. It's a statement of intent. The second one, I'm sorry, I made you, and you state the emotion that you see. The third, I'm sorry, relates to intellectual capacity, their sense of feeling less and that you treated them like less. Do you think I'm a child? Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I don't know what you're doing? It's really critical as a skill that we recognize what they're trying to say back to us. And you say, absolutely not. And I had no right. It speaks to right. I had no right to make you feel that way. I had no right to treat you that way. I am so sorry. And if you don't do that all too frequently, they are not going to start listening to you, and they resent that relationship change because they don't see you as an authority figure, and they see you as somebody who's really causing distress. Fourth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened. That absolutely shouldn't have happened. I'm sorry. Sorry. Let me see what I can do. I'm sorry that happened. That shouldn't have happened. Let me see what I can do. And the last I'm sorry. This is hard. I hate it for you. I'm sorry. This is hard. I hate it for you. The most powerful way to engage is to recognize when you've made a mistake and acknowledge it. You've got to pause, time out, and reset the agenda. And the agenda is, I owe you an apology. Even if I didn't intend it, it was never my intent. I was trying to help. Doesn't matter. That's her perception. And because she can't see my point of view, I'm going to be the one to give ground. And if I choose not to do that, she will choose not to engage with me in the way I want. And so it's like it's a choice I make.
So Gia showed you an example of a daily care plan a couple slides back. And I thought I'd share with you some suggestions for activities that you can incorporate into daily care. And so this slide is just simply a summary of those. So choosing an appropriate activity for a visit does require advanced planning. And the challenge is in finding an activity that's interesting and engaging, yet does not cause frustration or distress for the individual. Talked about this a lot. Remember the just right challenge. So it goes without saying that not every activity is suitable for every person. But you know what? Try out some of these. And if you find some things that work, be sure to share your ideas with anyone else who might interact with your loved one. Now, the COVID pandemic has created some blessings in disguise because now there are more interactive activities online than ever before. I mean, you can even go on virtual trips to the Louvre or the Metropolitan Museum of Art or zoos around the world. It's been my experience that family and friends may not want to visit. with someone who has dementia because they don't know what to do or they don't know what to say. Because conversations can be difficult, they can be awkward, they can definitely be repetitive. So, what works well is to provide your visitors with suggestions for simple activities that they can do during the visit, or give them tips about things that, to talk about, get some good conversation starters. Activities can be as simple as listening to music together. My aunt loved doing that with me. Or and actually that was before her hearing kind of declined. But anyway, reading or playing simple games. Now, one of our Hope Hospice volunteers is a World War II history buff. And so he brings his laptop when he visits patients who were veterans, and then he shares photos and stories from their era. Now, I mentioned my aunt who had dementia, and I just mentioned that she was very hearing impaired, especially towards the end. So I always came prepared with a deck of cards and a bag of dimes because she loved to play blackjack and was super sharp with cards and numbers until the very end. And she also loved to gamble. She would always go to Reno on the Reno bus, when she was able to do that. So everything was more fun for her when we gambled. So we didn't even need to have conversations, which tended to be difficult with her because she would ask the same questions over and over, and she would say the same things over and over. And then the fact that her hearing was impaired, added another obstacle to that. So the only way that I really could communicate with her towards the end was to write notes on a little whiteboard. Thankfully, her vision was still really good. And then she would often ask me questions about people from her past, but then she'd get real upset with herself and she'd say, I can't even remember what they looked like. So to kind of diffuse that, on the little whiteboard, I would draw a really silly stick figure of a person to show her. So, for example, if she was talking about, one individual who was bald and had a mustache, I would draw a stick figure of a guy who was bald and put a little mustache on there. And I would say, well, this is what he looked like. And then we would both just crack up at how ridiculous my drawing was. And so what that did was that distracted her from her sadness when she remembered that she couldn't remember. And we were able to move on to something else. And fortunately, she had a great sense of humor, and that actually lasted until the very end. So another example, my father-in-law had Alzheimer's, and he spent his last year or so in a care facility. And for his birthday, we got him one of those musical cards, the ones that as soon as you open it up, some song starts playing. Well, he loved that, and he thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so he kept opening and closing it, and opening it and closing it, and just laughing. And that silly little card really brought him so much pleasure over and over and over again. He probably drove the staff crazy, but that was okay because it just made him so happy. The point is, the activities don't need to be complicated or involved or lengthy. You just need to figure out what they like and what works. Again, this is going to be a lot of trial and error, but when you find some things that work, life can be good. Okay, some products. I have several sites for you on the resource list that have some great products and activities for people with dementia. But I wanted to draw your attention to this particular one. It's called Best Alzheimer's Products. And it's one of my favorites because it has a lot of stuff. They have products categorized for specific stages of dementia, early, middle, end stage. They have activities for leisure time, games and puzzles that'll work well with individuals who have, memory loss and language issues. They have art therapy, music therapy, reminiscence therapy. And they also have a section on assistive devices for daily living. So I hope you'll check out this Best Alzheimer's Product site. And again, the link is on the resource page. And so we wanted to end with just a couple more suggestions for you.
Companionship pets. They are also known as therapy pets, and they've been shown to decrease behavioral challenges in some persons living with dementia and to help a person to feel loved and needed. So, unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, most, if not all, pet therapy visits were eliminated for a long time. They're starting to come back now, but that was a problem. The robotic pets. They are darling. They come in all shapes and sizes. Cats and dogs are both widely available, and they range from small, little tiny dogs that curl up and cuddle in your lap, and they gently breathe in and breathe out while they sleep, to cats that sit on your lap and they purr audibly, and you can also feel them purring through vibrations in their bodies. The cats also lick their paws, they arch their backs so that you can appropriately rub their bellies. They are really, really cute. They've got soft, furry bodies, and the body movements really mimic typical pets. Technology can be an amazing thing. Studies have shown that the use of robotic pets has really helped to decrease stress and anxiety, as well as give some people that sense of meaning and purpose that we all need. And incidentally, the use of robotic pets has also been shown to reduce the need for the use of psychotropic and pain medications in some persons living with dementia. I had one patient name her pet cat Blondie. When I introduced Blondie to her, she fell in love with her immediately. And as I left the room and walked down the hallway, I could still hear this patient cooing and loving on Blondie for at least 15 or 20 minutes after I walked out of the room. I think, Debbie, we've got a short little video to give an example of them. Yes? Yes. Thank you.
Most afternoons, you'll find 81-year-old Tom Clark snoozing with his pet cat Aspen on his lap. But look closely. This cat doesn't need to be fed or let outside. Aspen, the name of a cat he once had, isn't real. And he just loves it. Aspen is a robotic cat with artificial intelligence built in, designed to do normal cat stuff like stretch, purr, and roll on its back.
Sometimes they'll even ignore you the way a cat might, typically.
Psychologist Dr. Caitlin Holly started using these robotic pets about 2 months ago with dementia patients.
And the idea is that it's a non-pharmacological intervention that can help with anxiety, it can help with agitation, restlessness.
While researchers are still gathering data on the benefits of these AI animals, the experience supports the early findings. Had he been a little more agitated?
Yes.
A little more restless?
Yes.
Put the cat on his lap?
And he calmed right down, they said.
Some might say, well, what's the difference if you just gave him a little stuffed animal versus this?
It doesn't purr, it doesn't meow, this one, the eyes go, the head turns, it stretches.
All those actions happen in response to how much people interact with their pet.
I don't know if he knows it's not real, but it calms him down.
And he doesn't have to share Aspen. It's only for him. While all the patients prescribed a pet are diagnosed with dementia, not all the dementia patients here are candidates for a robotic pet.
If a veteran really had a close connection with a particular animal, if their family member thinks they would benefit, some of it is based on what we notice them struggling with.
And as for Tom, a little bit of purring and cat lap time eases those struggles.
Okay, so I just wanted to share with you one of the ways that my family stayed connected with my aunt during the pandemic. So not being able to visit in person, we did want to let her know that we're thinking about her. So this worked really well when we couldn't visit. And then once things opened up and we were able to visit, it still was a really great item for her to use. So not to sound like an infomercial, but I learned of the skylight photo frame from a webinar that I attended a while back that was given by the Family Caregiver Alliance. Now, I know that these digital photo frames have been around for a long time, But what I really liked about the skylight one was the ease with which anybody, anyone in the family, friends, whatever, can upload photos to the frame from anywhere. So instead of uploading it to the actual device, you upload it, the pictures, via a special email that's connected to the frame. And I liked how easy it is to view the photos, even for somebody with dementia. Now, I had my aunts set to shuffle the pictures so that a new one came up every 45 seconds. That's a long time, but since she had dementia, it took her longer to process visually. And the device can be programmed to go on in the morning and off at night, so you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. Now, when we first got it, I uploaded about 60 photos to the frame, on the frame, and a lot of them were old photos from her childhood. The frames actually hold about 8,000 files. So I dropped off the frame with the facility, with the activity director, and he connected it to the Wi-Fi, and my aunt was immediately able to look at the pictures. And I gave out her unique Skylight email address to everyone in the family. And then everyone was able to send pictures to the device, either using their phones or their computers. And there's no cost after the initial purchase. However, you can get an upgrade for about $50 a year. And if the upgrade enables you to send videos or to label the pictures. Now, labeling was good for my aunt because of, the memory issues. So here is a picture of, let's see if I can get that to come. Why are you not coming up? Here's a picture of my aunt with her photo frame. And then in addition to photos, I would upload little messages. On her birthday, I would upload, today's your birthday, happy birthday. So planning meaningful activities can take some time initially and may require some creativity and thinking outside of the box. But in the end, knowing that we've done all we can to help improve the quality of life for somebody living with dementia, it makes all of our efforts so worthwhile. So in closing, I just want to remind you that we have lots of resources for you on our website, and they support and supplement all of the information that we've provided for you today. And the 2-page resource list has active links. So you have to download the document to your computer, click on the link, and then it'll take you right to the website. Now, one of my favorite resources is called Caring for a Person with Alzheimer's, but it's actually really helpful no matter what type of dementia your loved one has. And then we also, and Gia has mentioned this, we have a handout with Teepa Snow's gems. And so it's kind of a nice little graphic about that. And so I hope you're going to be able to take a look at these.